Hello and welcome to the Art of Artisan. Before we get into the deck today, I just want to ask, please like and subscribe. I want these videos to get out to a lot of people. I want people to be able to see that there are budget options for things like Explorer and getting into these older formats. So if you could just take a moment and do that, that'd be awesome. Today we are playing Chandra's Spitfire Cavalcade. Chandra's Spitfire gets +3 attack whenever we deal non-combat damage to an opponent. And Chandra's Pyreling gets double strike and +1 attack, so in other words, +2 attack whenever an opponent's dealt non-combat damage. Both of these also have 1 power, which means Cavalcade of Calamity is a fantastic combo with them. Cavalcade of Calamity deals 1 non-combat damage to a player whenever a creature with power 1 or less attacks. So if we can have a Chandra's Spitfire and a Cavalcade of Calamity on the battlefield, that's a 5 damage each turn clock. And we're not just going to stop at having these cards to trigger Cavalcade of Calamity. We've also got Fanatical Firebrand, Scorch Spitter, and Voldaren Epicure, all of which can also deal non-combat damage to our opponents. And then we've got Torch Courier to make sure we can swing in with these if we draw them in the late game, as we can sacrifice it to give them haste and attack the turn we play them. We've got some Burn in the deck as well, which once again is non-combat damage to our opponent. It can also help close out the game after our opponent has gummed up the board a bit. And because we're playing such a cheap deck, we've got a couple of exile draw spells. Light Up the Stage being one of the best Artisan cards in Explorer. Our land base, very light lands. We're going to be trying to keep a super low curve, but we do have a couple Desert of the Fervents in here, which is worth mentioning. These are just useful to make sure we keep drawing action. And that is Chandra's Spitfire Cavalcade. Very simple deck, very powerful deck. Let's get to the games and see how it does. Game 1 versus Alexei Tabor. And we do have Scorch Spitter and Spitfire, which is good enough to keep this, but we're really going to want this Light Up the Stage to hit a Cavalcade of Calamity. That is one of the best things we can hit. Opponent's playing red, but did not have a 1-drop, which makes me think they're either Gruul or Jeskai Control. It's looking like it's Jeskai, or maybe some sort of Izzet Control. That's also a thing. We'll swing in with the Scorch Spitter. Oh. Bone Crusher. Okay, I'm not sure what our opponent's up to. We're just going to Reckless Impulse here. It is a little bit reckless, but it pays off perfectly. That's a Cavalcade and a land drop for next turn. Giants? Are we playing against Izzet Giants? That is cool. Okay. I guess we just Cavalcade and Desert of the Fervent. Your go, opponent. And now we get to drop a Chandra's Spitfire, but I'm thinking it might be better to just play out all of our cheap creatures first. Agar. Maybe not. Okay. So we could skewer Agar. We could play Chandra's Spitfire. I think we just lead out with Chandra's Spitfire and hope our opponent doesn't have removal for it. If they don't, we may have lethal next turn, literally. Because each of these deals 4... Oh no, it won't be lethal, but it'll be close. 5 damage plus a lot equals a lot of damage. Depends on if our opponent swings in with Agar, or if they have removal for the Spitfire. Removal is brutal. No blocks. Pretty obviously. Opponent passes. Okay. So best order to play these out. I think we Voldaren Epicure. Pinging our opponent's face. Now we can skewer the opponent twice, but it looks like they have removal or something up their sleeve right now. So I'm just going to Light Up the Stage. Actually, do we want to give our opponent a turn to draw whatever the giant sweeper is. I'm scared of the giant sweeper. So I think we're going to avoid the sweeper by just skewering our opponent's face a few times. Such a fun phrase. Okay, skewer. And then even if our opponent's able to kill the Spitfire, we at least dealt damage to our opponent in a good way. We can start getting in with a bunch of hasty creatures to trigger Cavalcade. Swing in. Removal. Removal. Dang, and it's removal that draws our opponent a card. That's good for them. Yeah, this Izzet removal sweep might be perfect for beating us. More removal, more card draw. Yeah, feels bad to lose to such a simple deck. I feel like our opponent's deck is not very good, but we're going to lose to it. Okay. Now, if our opponent has one more stomp, we're dead if we just swing out next turn. So we're going to leave back one blocker just in... Actually, yeah, we've got to go all out. We've got to just swing in hard. Opponent has something. Hopefully it's only creature removal. If it's creature removal, we have a chance by top decking one of our Chandra's creatures. Okay, swing in. Hopefully hit our opponent for 4. And then we can hit them for a bunch next turn if they swing out back as their response. And pass to you. Okay. Squash. All right. That's bad for us. That's also card draw. If they draw another Bone Crusher Giant, we lose the game here. Fire Giant's Fury. That cleans up the game. Alrighty. Well, our opponent had a bunch of cheap removal, which is a great answer to a bunch of cheap creatures. On to game number 2. Game number 2 versus Joe Schmo. And we've got another good hand. This deck is pretty good at having good hands. We're going to keep it. Opponent playing Health Collector. I actually think we've just got to get rid of that before it grows. So we're going to play Fanatical Firebrand and call that good. No attacks. So we're playing Gruul Aggro. We'll kill the Pelt Collector. Opponent's probably going to have a Burning Emissary chain, which a bunch of 2/2s, good answer to a bunch of 1/1s. Hopefully they don't have a lot. Bone Crusher to our face. Sweet. Well, we will play out Chandra's Pyreling before we play out Cavalcade. The reasoning here being it gives us a bit more of a surprise. We're a Cavalcade deck. Llanowar Elves. So our opponent's light on mana. They did not play a land that turn. Which makes me think we might actually want to just kill Llanowar Elves. I think we will. Okay. So now we swing out with Chandra's Pyreling, hit our opponent's face. Do they block? Obviously they do not. But they're going to take 4 damage from this Pyreling. We hit them, and we are going to play with fire, make sure our opponent doesn't have mana to play Bone Crusher Giant this next turn. Sweet. Looks like our opponent is bad on mana because they would have played that last time. That's what they just drew. So we will play out a Chandra Spitfire. Do we play Spitfire? Yeah, Spitfire's best here. And we'll swing in with the Pyreling. Trigger both of these. And if they block, we've got double strikes, so they would just lose their creature. No land? No land! Let's go. Oh, and they're double swinging? I think they're dead. They're dead to these Skewer the Critics, I believe. Yep, so we just play this. We swing out. Get double Cavalcade triggers. And that's 7 damage in the air, plus a Skewer in hand. That's easily victory for us. Skewer your face. And we are up to 1-1, and we beat the tier deck this time. Like, this Gruul Aggro deck is a semi-popular one in Explorer. Sure, they had land issues, but we did play well against our opponent's land issues. So let's go to game 3. Game number 3 versus Ynoir. Why Noir? This hand actually has a lot going for it. If our opponent's a Llanowar Elf deck, we have removal. I think we're good. We've got Chandra's Pyreling and burn spells. We've got to light up the stage to dig for something better. Playing against something black. We will just swing in with Torch Courier and offer the trade to our opponent. I think that's the best play here. We do give our opponent a treasure. I think our opponent's more in need of cards than they are in need of treasure. Which, if they're a Deadly Dispute deck, this was a mistake. But you don't see as much Deadly Dispute in Explorer. Valentine. Okay. Our opponent's having some fun. When you do, you may pay 2 and make a pest. Whenever one of our creatures dies, they can make a pest if they pay 2. So that'll be an interesting creature to try and race. We'll start off by swinging with the Pyreling. Then we'll light up the stage. See if we hit a land. We do, and a Cavalcade. But we're actually going to run out the Pyreling this turn so that we can swing with it next turn with the Cavalcade down. And we may have lethal next turn. We can get 1, 2, 3, 4 triggers. These will both be 5/5 double strikes. Yeah, that's a pretty... If our opponent... Oh, okay. That's pretty good for our opponent. But if our opponent chooses not to block our Pyrelings, we will have a bunch of surprise damage for them. Draw a card and lose a life. Oh, that's lethal. We got him. We got him. Easy peasy. And we swing in with 2. It's so much fun to look and go like, we have lethal when our opponent's at 20 and it's turn 4. Just with the ridiculousness of all these triggers. This is now 12 damage. It's now 16 damage. That leaves our opponent at 1, so we need to play with fire. And that leaves our opponent at dead. Good game, opponent. Wow, we just... Our opponent's deck looked a little bit like a I put in the cards that I think are fun sort of deck. But we just steamrolled them so fast that game. Alright, this is going to be a short video. Let's go to game number 4. Game number 4 versus W42. And we've got a Cavalcade, we've got cheap creatures, we've got light up the stage, removal. This is a good hand. I don't think we've had to mulligan a single time with this deck, which is really a testament to how consistent it is. Keep. Please be playing something slow, opponent. I want to just steamroll before you get anything going. Okay. They're green-red. We may be facing Gruul Aggro again. They did not lead off with Llanowar Elves, so sadly we don't get the free Spike Field Hazard power. Okay, still green-red looking. We'll run out all of our creatures here and get ready for a Cavalcade next turn. Bonk. Bonk, bonk. And trying to think of how we want to do this. Oh, Lucky Clover. Are we facing Temur Adventures? 4-color. Oh, it's Omnath Adventures. Oh, we're facing Omnath Adventure. That is a pretty good deck. Spike Field Hazard is probably not going to be very useful here. So we're going to play it out, and then we're going to Cavalcade and swing in for 7 damage. Oh no, 8 damage. Alright, drawing a Chandra's Spitfire or anything like that would be easily the best draw here. Or potentially a land can let us Epicure into Light Up the Stage into Chandra's Pyreling. Oh, opponent's just ramping. We have lethal if they don't do anything this turn. Okay, red. Are they going to get a Bone Crusher mana? Blue. So they're going to try and bounce something. Probably our Cavalcade of Calamity, or they're going to stomp one of our creatures. Okay. Brazen Borrower bounces a Scorch Spitter and Cavalcade. Yep, that's what I would expect them to do. Our opponent's going to need hard removal because we're just going to keep pressuring their life total pretty directly with this pile of cards we got going. Okay, Fanatical Firebrand. Omnath is scary because it gains life for our opponent, but I'm not sure it gains them enough life if they just play an Omnath into like a Fabled Passage. I think we can finish them off through an Omnath. Omnath plus like Bone Crusher Giant Stomp, maybe we can't beat. Our opponent's either thinking very hard about how to beat us, or they are roping us out of anger. Oh wow. What are they looking for? Is there a 2-mana sweeper that they have in their sideboard? If so, very well played. Like Cinderclasm does get us here pretty bad. Hugin. That's not going to cut it. And escapes the wilds. Good game. They don't have anything to stop it. And we are 3-1, I believe. Wow, this deck just goes so fast. Let's go on to game number 5, the last one. Game number 5 versus Blake Go. And we once again have a fantastic hand. This is a definite keep. We want to draw one more land and then call that good. Ooh, it's an aggro race. I like aggro races. Ooh, that's not a good draw. Okay, opponent's going to get something that can block our Scorch Spitter here. Or maybe they don't. Oh, please don't have a creature. Oh, they've got a creature. They may be swinging with it. Okay, that's fine. Swinging with a creature we can deal with. Okay. So we do Desert of the Fervent into Torch Courier. Then we swing in with these two. Next turn we play a Chandra Spitfire. And then the turn after that we Cavalcade of Calamity and hopefully win. It's not too likely though. We're in trouble. We may not win this race. Fanatical Firebrand. That's another 2/2 haster. Hand Burning Tree Emissary. We can't all out swing now. We need blockers. Radical Firebrand. Holy cow. Wow, our opponent is playing perhaps the better budget deck. Castle Embereth is pretty much guaranteed lethal now for them. All we can do is play, if we play this and leave it back as a blocker, we can block 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can have 7 damage left. Yeah, let's do it. Okay. Next to attackers, no attacks, but I think we've already lost. This looks like death to us. Oh, wait. Kumano. I forgot about Kumano. And they can turn on Castle Embereth now, which means we are 100% dead, regardless of how we block. We can block 3 of their biggest threats, which isn't very big. Our opponent pumps the rest of the team, and we are left with no board and 1 life. And our 4th Chandra Spitfire. Woohoo! And we scoop it up. Wow. Mono Red Aggro from our opponent that just kind of beat ours out. Well, let's get to the deck wrap-up. Alright, I've updated my record with every single game I've played with this deck since it's in this final form. And this deck is incredible. 30-13 is a fantastic record for, and like even 3-2 is a good record for an Artisan deck in a non-rotating format like Explorer. The deck did fantastic. If there's one complaint I have about the deck, it's that we need to draw Cavalcade of Calamity to function. It's very rare that we win without it, although we do have good ways to dig for it, and we do have a decent game plan even without it. But really, the deck is a Cavalcade of Calamity deck. Things that overperformed, underperformed. We saw our burn spells perform really well, and Chandra's Pyroling perhaps be better than Chandra's Spitfire just because it was cheaper. Although, if our opponent has blockers, it's not quite as good. Skewer the Critics, we saw it finish off a game. Light Up the Stage, incredible card. Cavalcade, incredible card. We never got to see Torch Courier do its thing. I'm wondering if this might be better as just a different haste creature, perhaps Ginger Brute. Ginger Brute is a solid card. But besides that, I don't think there's any changes that I'd make to the deck. If you want to build a sideboard for this deck, cheap creatures that do good things are important. Like Ruinous Gremlin you can use to destroy artifacts, but it can also just be pressure with the Cavalcade. Unlucky Witness would be great against control decks as something that triggers Cavalcade, but also is card draw when it dies. Removal is important, especially Seismic Wave against some of these decks that have lots of cheap creatures that come up the board. End the Festivities, similar idea for just cleaning up our opponent's side of the board. And one card that I've had experience with this deck that's really good is Heartfire. Heartfire is a good way to close out the game, and it's a way to fizzle removal spells. Like, our opponent tries to remove a creature, and we go, actually instead, 4 damage to your face. So, the deck's solid. I highly recommend this deck if you want to grind wins. You can see how short this video was. We won super quickly. We lost super quickly when we did lose. So take this deck out for a spin. Very cheap. It has more commons than your average Artisan deck, so it's even cheaper than normal. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, keep enjoying Budget Magic.